In a recent study, it was estimated that we eat a credit card worth of plastic a week. I'm not crazy, I'm not chewing plastic, you might say. So where does it come from? The plastic that we consume comes in a form of microplastic, small little particles of plastic that can't be seen, and we consume it mostly through our tap water. On average, in Europe, there are 3.8 microfibers found in a liter of tap water and 9.6 in the US. Another major source of microplastics according to the study is shellfish, as it's consumed with its whole intestines, and so it happens that it ingests a lot of microplastics throughout its life. Two other sources mentioned were beer and salt, which again are deeply linked to water. Though, should we care about microplastics? Well, there aren't studies yet of how microplastic that we ingest could affect us, though microplastic aren't a known nutrient as well. So at best it could be a net neutral, though I tend to believe otherwise. In nature, plastic takes hundreds of years to degrade. I'm not sure how our bodies deal with them, though some animals actually accumulate microplastics through the years. A more concrete example was reported that wild salmon eggs were poisoned by microplastics from old tires that were washed into the river. Apparently, tires have all sorts of hazardous chemicals in them, and frankly, why not? We aren't putting them in our mouths, though still what comes around goes around, and microplastics tend to one way or the other get into our water supplies, as the plastic waste is so widespread. Due to microplastics not being regulated, utility companies don't need to test for them and filter them. If you would like to filter it out, you would need to use expensive filters and cut out all the use of bottled water, sodas, etc. if you want to be completely safe. Another way we consume microplastics is through our lungs. One of the main ways our air gets polluted is by wearing synthetic clothes. Our clothes put out a lot of plastic particles in the air and also in the water when we wash them. It's hard to tell when these particles become a problem, though one study analyzed people working with nylon and polyester fibers, the most common plastic in clothes. They had symptoms of breathlessness, coughing, and reduced lung capacity. Now, this happens when we go to extremes and our bodies get overwhelmed with microplastics. In the outdoors, we have cars, and even though we are steadily shifting to electric cars without exhaust, but there is another way how cars are polluting our environment by releasing particles from tires. I've already briefly mentioned how tires have different harmful chemicals in them, which may end up in our lungs and also in our environment, lakes, rivers, etc. Tire wear is the second largest pollutant of water after single-use plastics. Though there's a very promising project out there that's trying to tackle this problem. A group of students built up a device that gathers up car tire particles when driving. As the particles that detach from the tire are positively charged, they can be easily captured in a container. The captured particles can be safely recycled. Time will tell if this gets adopted, but it definitely seems like a promising solution. Another reason why we should care about microplastics is that they can even turn into nanoplastic, which sounds like less of a problem as the particles are much smaller, but the size is actually the problem. As the particles get so small, they can pass through cell membranes and cause damage inside a cell. It has already been studied that fish tend to accumulate nanoplastic in their gallbladder, pancreas, and brain, causing ill effects on their behavior. That's all I wanted to share about microplastics, though what we as consumers can do to help. Well, honestly, not much. We can try to alter our choices and avoid synthetic clothes, big glass bottles instead of plastic, etc. Though I'm a big believer that this should be solved through proper taxation, where single-use plastics get taxed, and it makes businesses and consumers more incentivized to look for alternatives. Outright bans can work too, as microbeads that were put into face scrubbers got banned in Europe. Glitter seems to be next on the list. And how are laws born? Well, as people get more and more educated about some issues, they get vocal about it, and the authorities follow.